everyone. I'm Linda Nickell, and welcome to the Happiness Hour. Our goal has been to help us all connect, inspire, and create with the help of guests that shares their images and the stories behind them. Some inspiration to help you try something new, and their tips to help us all improve our photography skills. The schedule for our upcoming presentations is on my website at lindanickell.com, as well as the links to previous sessions on YouTube. Tonight's guest is Karen Riley. Karen is an art teacher and a macro and still life photographer. Karen published her first book last fall called Composition: 15 Photography Tips to Creating Captivating Images, which can be found on Amazon.com. And she recently styled the cover image recently published by Texas Gardener magazine. Karen joined us in session number 12, where she talked about blog goals, and you can find that session on my YouTube channel. In tonight's presentation, from idea to ebook to Amazon and all the steps in between, Karen will talk about planning and the topics to consider when you're writing a book, including what it takes to self-publish on Amazon. She'll touch on brainstorming, researching, organizing, graphics, layouts, and publishing, as well as how to avoid some time-consuming pitfalls so that you can get started today. You can connect with her on Instagram at homeplate101, and that's homeplate_101, and on her website, homeplate101.com. So before you get started, Karen Riley, all right. So for some of you guys, you may have attended the in-person happiness hour that we did in Georgetown. And at that presentation, I only gave her like 30 minutes and I'm like, Karen, condense it. So she whizzed through and hit a lot of her headings. And in this session, I said, Karen, slow it down, take us through the steps, more of your very methodical, organized way. So hopefully you guys have some notepads, because I know that I've seen her notes. And so she is super, super thorough. And if you have any questions or any fantasies of, I'm going to start a book, I just don't know where to start or when to start or how to start. If Karen doesn't give you that jump start, please connect with us personally. And between the two of us, we will help you get started, because she did it and she made it look so easy. And I have a name. My name is on Amazon.com because of her. So with that, Karen, thank you for coming. And this is all yours.
Great. Glad to be here. Okay, I just wanted to give you just a little bit of background about kind of where I came from and why I did the book. So I have an accounting degree, business background, but I also have an art background. I've been teaching art for 8 years, but I also have a fine arts degree. So just growing up, I took 6 years of painting lessons. I took some art classes in high school. I have a fine arts degree, and I never got a clear breakdown of the rules of composition all in one place. And so when I started teaching my students, I wanted to make sure that I really love skill building with my students. And so I feel like once you have skills, then you can get to the creative part, and then you can run with it. It's really hard to watch a student who has great ideas, but no skills. And so I really work with grammar students and like middle schoolers, and then young high schoolers to work on their skills. So anyway, so I wanted to put all this book of composition together for my students, and then they have the choice whether to use the rules or not. But at least they have a comprehensive idea of why a lot of photography is successful. And so then after I put all that information together, I was like, oh, well, I'm just going to make an ebook out of it, because then that'll be easier for them to be able to see everything. And then they can just use the ebook. And I thought, well, okay, well, maybe other people will be interested, young, teens that are just getting their first phone or camera. And so I just put it out there. And so that's really why I got started. So sorry.
So that's okay. So let's get you to back up just a little bit. Let's talk
Okay.
about Linda again. How did Linda get involved?
Okay, so I get about halfway through I start the book and I realize I don't have enough examples. And so, just scrolling through, I've been following Linda's Instagram, probably since she started. And so I was like, wait a minute, she has tons of examples. So I just had dinner with you one night and would just asked you if I could use some of your examples in the book, and you were more than glad to offer those. So then we became co-authors. So that's awesome. So yeah. Okay. So hang on. I'm about to share my screen. I've seen a bunch of I follow a lot of you guys on Instagram, and I know you guys have some incredible the photographs. And so what I realized too is that after you follow somebody for a little while, you start to see that they have a niche. And so some of you have insects, some of you have wildlife, some of you are in a particular area of the country or the world that you focus on. Some of you focus on people. Some of you have some amazing photo tips in your area of expertise. But also, a lot of you could use your photographs and the information that you gather and post for children's books. Because I was telling them at the thing in Georgetown that my son, when he was young, up until probably even his teen years, he was always asking me, is this true? And so I was like, oh, so he loved science books and loved to learn about insects and bugs and animals and so all kinds of things. And so children's books are still really, really popular. So if you guys are thinking about writing a book, or you already have a body of work that you would like to put together, I really want to encourage you to do that. Okay, so why do you want to write the book? And so I've read this over and over, that if your only goal is to make $1 million or a ton of money, that's not a great goal. And those people don't usually do as well as they hope. What really you need to have a really strong answer that is about helping others, about giving people knowledge that you have that's going to help them solve a problem for them. And so that's just something that you need to consider of why you would write the book. Now, some ideas about where to start, about what kind of book to write. What I would encourage you to think about is, what do you know the most about? What topic do you know the most about? What do you think would be helpful for others? What are you interested in writing about? Because if other people aren't interested and you're not interested, your book is going to peter out and you're not going to finish it. And unfortunately, no one will buy it if it's not interesting to some people. So you also need to think about, is it going to be fiction? Is it going to be nonfiction? Do you want to make a workbook for someone, which is what I kind of do for my students? And who is your audience? It's really helpful to know who you're writing to. Is it children, young adults, adults, people who are beginners or intermediate or advanced? And so just think about those things as you're starting to narrow your topics down. And you don't have to start with one very, very specific topic. You can have a bunch of topics, and we'll go, in the next slide, we'll talk about brainstorming. So you don't have to narrow it down right away, but these are just questions you need to think about and start to answer. Some of the other things you need to think about are planning and having goals. How much time can you really spend to this project? How much money can you spend? When you publish an ebook, especially, there's very little cost. It's pretty reasonable as far as projects go, but you still want to be able to control that and have some idea of where the money is going before you start to make money. And then, do you have a date that you would like to be finished? So you have an end goal. You may not meet it, but it's great to have a date to get, when you want to get started and when you want to finish. And then more than likely, if you stick to your goals and you have more like daily goals and weekly goals, you will get probably very close to your end date. All right, so now we're going to get started. We're going to talk about brainstorming. So what you need to do is write down everything you know about your subject. And there are a few different methods of brainstorming. You obviously can come up with your own, whatever works for you, but I just wanted to give you some ideas of some of the topics that I have heard. And then like one of my favorite ones. So some people use the Post-it note method. And so they have a bunch of pads of Post-it notes and they just write every single thing they can think of. And so it's like individual ideas on each Post-it note, and they just stick them as quickly as they can around. One lady sticks them on her mirror because she likes to physically get up and put them up there, but you don't have to do that. You could just stick them on the table. What's great about the Post-it note method is that you can take, after all your Post-it notes are out, you can start to group them physically by topic. And so that is an awesome thing. Some people like the timer method. So when you say, okay, I'm just going to brainstorm today for 15 minutes straight. And so I'm just going to write everything I can think of. Silly, you know, it may be ridiculous. It may be fantastic. It may be incredible. Just anything that inspires you, you write it down in your time allotment. And what that does for people psychologically is they feel the end. So they know there is an end to this. So I don't have this infinite amount of time. And so, it causes people, especially like procrastinators, to get busy with ideas and write them down. Now, you can do this multiple times. You can do this every day for a week. You can do it 3 times a day. The timer method, it doesn't matter, but it's just setting a goal of just, I'm only going to do this for 15 minutes. And I'm going to be totally focused on this. My method was a notebook with categories. And so basically what I did is I wrote down all the categories I could think of. I use a notebook for me because I do a lot of drawings, and it's just easier for me to have the drawings in the notebook. I also, because I'm a teacher, can't always have my phone out when I get an idea, even like I'm out on a, you know, with students. So if I get an idea, I can write it in the notebook, and it's not like pulling out my phone all the time. A lot of people just type it in a Google Doc or a Word doc, and that's fine too. The great thing about doing it on, you know, on your computer or your phone is that you can edit it, you can move it around into the different categories. That's great. I just personally, for me, I don't have access to my phone or my computer all the time. So if you have another method, use whatever works for you. So you're going to get as many ideas as you possibly can. Then you're going to start sorting them by topics. Okay, do you see any things that are in common? Do you have some things that overlap? Do you have things that could be combined? And so then you're going to sort them all by topic. Now what you're going to do is you're going to start to look for gaps in your information. I realized that there were definitely some gaps in my photography because most of my stuff was still life. It was food, flowers, things I could do in my house or around my neighborhood. We just weren't able to travel as much. And so that's where I realized part of my gap was. And so that's when I realized I needed to approach Linda and ask her about her photographs. Okay, so now is the time that you want to start your research. Okay, and this is where you're filling in your gaps. And that's where, like in my notebook, I would leave like 3 or 4 extra pages so that I could come back and fill that in if I didn't feel like I had enough information. And so you can read books, you can search online, you can watch videos, you guys know all this stuff. What you want to make sure you're doing is keeping track of the websites and books, everything you want that you're citing it, so that you can, one, go back if you can't remember exactly what you, the information that you learned, or you want to make sure you fact check it. The other part is you want to add those resources in the back of your book, you know, as places that you looked and found information. So you want to give those authors credit for the work that they did. So there's tons of resources out there now, which is incredible. And you can make it your own. The way that I would make it my own is I would watch it or read it, and I would put it aside. I would cite, you know, either the website or the book, And then I would write like my version of it. And then I would try to think of an example that I had or Linda had. And that's how we made it our own. And so I was, was to stay away from plagiarizing, because I definitely did not want to plagiarize someone else's work. Okay, my favorite subject, I'm not really, but I do think it's super important. Budget and expenses. So I think you need to be realistic about, in the very beginning, how much you could spend, and to not let it get out of hand. It can be really exciting to be on a project and not just writing a book, but any project, and to start spending a ton of money thinking that you're gonna make it, imagining to make all this money. And so what you just want to do is be careful of how much you're spending, especially if you are limited in your expenses that you can shell out before you start to get income. So one of the things that you really should consider is setting aside some money for an editor fee. So that is definitely some money. Elaine was gracious enough to edit ours for us. There's a copyright fee. If you choose to, the copyright is optional, but if you choose to go that route, there is a fee for that. It was $65 at the time that we did it at the end of last year. You are for sure, if you get a paperback or a hardback, you're going to want a proof copy because you want to see what your customer is going to get. And so, and I think we ended up ordering maybe 3 different cycles of proof copies. And so, you think, oh, it's perfect. And you send it and you get the proof copy and you're like, those 3 words are too close together. And so you have to send it back, or, oh, the page number is off, or that layout doesn't look great, in a 2-fold, 2-page layout. And so it's just so helpful to have the actual, either, the ebook, seeing it on the screen, the way it will look, or having the actual proof copy for your book in your hands and just being able to look at it with fresh eyes. So on your spreadsheet, you can do a handwritten one. I use a spreadsheet to do this, and you really don't even need, they're very simple, topics that you need to put. You need to put the date, you need to estimate the amount on your budget, okay? And then you need to write in the type of expense. And then on your actual budget, it's very similar. You put the date, you put the amount, and you put the who you paid it to, and then what type of expense it was. A lot of times you can tell by who you paid it to. And then you can start to add those up or subtract them from your income. And the spreadsheet does that for you once you put in some sums. And so it's really nice to have that, especially if you get down the line and you have to deal with taxes. It's so nice to already have that ready to go and just be able to look all those numbers up, very easily for taxes. So I encourage you to definitely keep track of the things that you spend, especially if you start to make money. You're going to want to be able to allocate the expenses toward it. So I really, really, really want to encourage you guys, once you decide on all your topics and you've arranged them how you want it, to use an outline. And I'm just going to read you the stats. 95% of technical writers use some sort of outline. Even if you're writing a story, J.K. Rowling, the author of all the Harry Potter books, says, I always have a basic plot outline. So most of the technical writers have some sort of outline. Some were very detailed. Like, I'll just tell you, for our book, it was, my outline for that book was about 5 pages, single space, 11-point font. And so it was very detailed, because I feel like the more details I have, the easier it is to write. But that's up to you. Some people just use a loose outline, but it does keep you on track. And then I took the outline, I literally saved it in one Google Doc, and then I copied it, and then I just started making complete sentences out of it and filling in all kinds of information, extra information that I knew about that. And so I would go back to my notebook sometimes. Sometimes I would just free flow. I just wrote down everything. Don't worry about editing it yet. Just free flow as much information as you possibly can. We'll go back and you will have time where you will edit it thoroughly. And then I would if you can't think of anything to write? And there were days I was like, oh my gosh, please, Lord, just let me think of something to write today. It's okay. It happens to everybody. And so here were some of the things that I did. I know people have all kinds of things they do when they get writer's block, but these really seem to work for me. I would take a break, first of all, and just put it aside and think I'll come back later. I would go out and get some exercise, take my dogs for a walk. It really helped to talk it over with a friend. I have a teenage daughter who's a senior in high school, and to just like talk about some of the topics with her, and then I could continue on. And then ask for help. Linda was a great help. Once I started pulling the photographs that related to the topics, it was super easy to write about them because I had visuals of what I was writing about. You can also, I would really, really encourage you to get in a group that is going to be supportive to you. And they don't even have to be working on a book. It doesn't have to be a writer's group. I feel like the group of women, like when Linda started this program, there was a whole bunch of women in this group that were starting different things. And so it just helped to be an encouragement to continue on. So definitely, work on getting unstuck. And these were, I just wanted to show you the parts of the book that you ought to include. Because I'd never really thought about this, like just looking through an actual book and like what is included. So there's always a title page, which is just a white page with just the title and the author's name, kind of centered in the middle. The copyright page is optional, although I definitely would encourage you to do a little bit homework on copyright, and I would definitely encourage you to put a copyright page. The dedication page is totally up to you. That's optional, but it mentions who you might be thanking for helping you continue on or encourage you with the book. A table of contents. Possibly if you're doing a novel, I wouldn't include a table of contents, but you still could with your chapter titles. It just tells your reader where they're going, and it kind of gives them an overview. And so a table of contents was really helpful. It also sometimes will show up when Amazon gives a sneak preview of your book. They will sometimes go as far as the table of contents. So it also tells your reader what's going to happen before they buy the book. And so it really encourages them to buy the book. The introduction or preface, that's just to kind of tell your reader like what the book is like, kind of what you should expect to learn or what you expect to get out of the book, or just something a little bit about you and why you wrote the book. And then you have your content. And then about the author is just something about you that kind of connects you to your work and to your audience. And so it's think about things that you have in common with your audience. Resources, those are all the websites and books and videos that you watched that were really helpful, that were not common knowledge, and that you feel like you gained some information from them. So I would definitely include those. And then a glossary is optional for a technical book. I would definitely include like a glossary and an index, especially maybe for a very, that has tons of pages. An index is really helpful. But a glossary, is the one that gives the definitions of words. And so any unfamiliar words that you might have in your book, that's a great place to put them so people can look up and see, especially if you're talking to beginners or young people that might not understand all of the words that might be very familiar to you. So on self-editing, the more time you spend editing, the less you'll have to pay for an editor to look over your work. And so these are just, I probably went through and edited for probably 7 to 10 times, and I was looking for specific things each time. So I didn't edit for all of these things at once. I would do one day when I would just look for grammar and spelling errors. And I would do one day when I just did sentence variety, like, is every sentence the same? Subject, verb. Do I start every sentence with the same words? Can I open them with more adverbs or more phrases? Then I would do word variation. I had the thesaurus open all the time because what's another word for photograph? What's another word for picture? And so just having some different words that you're not using the same words over and over. Can you add interesting adjectives and adverbs that enhance the understanding of your reader? I did one run through when I was just looking at all the numbers. Are all the numbers correct? Are the page numbers correct? Are any references to other numbers or pages in the book correct? And then I chose to use some bold words. And so was I consistent in the bold usage? So if you wanted to use bold subheadings, were all of your subheadings consistent? And so that was one thing that I did. I just did a number of edits going through looking for different things. Okay, putting it all together. So now, if you are writing a book that is a lot of text, very little photography or graphics, you probably can keep your document in Word or Google Doc and upload it to Amazon, Kindle, or Gumroad very easily. If you have a lot of pictures that you want to add to your ebook, especially, I would highly recommend Gumroad, because the Kindle version of ebook on Amazon, it changes because they're trying to be very, very user friendly. When it changes from your phone to your tablet to your laptop with the same book, it's going to format your pictures and where they are. And so if you really want your pictures in a certain place, I definitely would recommend, it's called gumroad.com. And that way you can download a PDF and you can upload it to Gumroad, and it stays exactly, it looks exactly the way you uploaded it. Amazon is really trying to make it, so that you can switch from different types of screens, and it's really easy to read, but it does affect where your pictures go. So that was one thing I definitely recommend. And then here's where you use, I use Canva. I thought it was extremely user friendly. I'm going to get out here for just a second, and I'm going to show you guys just really quick tutorial on Canva. So I did, my presentation is on Canva, so I'll come back to that in just a minute. So basically what you want to do is you want to log into Canva. You can get a free account. And then I liked the 8.5 by 11 format for our book, just because I was thinking of my students, and it's really easy for them to have it the size of a notebook and to be able to write in it. So you would come to templates, and then here we go. And then I just used business letterheads because I knew it was 8.5 by 11. And then I picked a blank one down here. And then you can see this little dotted line. So that is where you can make it larger or smaller, right down here. So you can just move it up and you can make it larger or smaller. I'll leave it right about here. And so this is the outside of your page. And then this tiny dotted line is really where you want to keep your text. Right in between the dotted lines, you want to keep your text in there. And so I would go over to File, and I want to see my rulers, and I want to see my margins, and I want to see the print bleed. And that means this is the edge of the paper, this tiny little thing. This is the edge of the paper that they actually cut off when they make a book. And so here's what you want to do. You want to keep all of your information in here. And so then I just put up this fake, I'm just going to create this fake 2-page layout for you guys just to show you. So in here, I uploaded some photos of some flowers. So I'm going to do this fake layout of this sunflower thing that I'm writing. Not really, but it's just to show you guys. Okay, so I'm going to drag my picture over here, and then I want them to be a certain size, and then I can just drag them and then let it go. And then right here, just make it as small as I want. And let's just put another one on the page, and I'll put it down here. Okay. And so I'm going to add it right to the edge. And then I'm going to make it a tiny bit smaller because I want to put some text in here. Okay, and so then you come over here to this side and I want to add some text. And then I have a variety of text I can add. So I can add a heading, a subheading, or a little bit of body text. And so I'm going to put a heading in there. And I'm not going to want it that big. And then right now I can type in, my heading is going to be sunflowers. And then I don't want to make it quite that big, and I want to push it over just a little bit more. You can drag it. I can make it a smaller font. Let's just say 36. Okay, and I want to move it again because right now it's centered. Okay, and you can see that pink line show up. That means you're getting toward the edge of your print section. Okay, and so now if I wanted to add some text, a little bit of text right here, I could put it there, and then I could highlight it, and then I could actually go over to the text I've already written as a sample, highlight it off of my Google Doc, copy it, and then this is where it gets, then come back and put it in here, and there it is. Now, I don't want it centered. I want it to be left justified, and so I move it there and left justified, and then I can make it as big as I want and move my flower over and make it smaller if I need to. And it's just so simple. And so this is what I love about Canva. And then you can copy this page in this format, and you can make another copy, and you can let me lift this back up. You can come down here on these little boxes, and you can, I'm going to copy it real quick. So here's where I would just duplicate the page. Okay, so now I have two pages that are identical. If I want to come down here, I'll do the grid view, and now I can see what my layout would be side by side. And if I don't like the format, I can actually move it around. But it's just, it's a fantastic program. I really love it, and I think it's very user friendly. And then I can download this in PDF. And the photographs came out very nicely. Download the PDF and then bring it up into either ebook or an actual book, and it just was seamless. It was really amazing. So I definitely encourage you to check out Canva, and there is a free version, which is what I mostly use. There are some paid benefits to using, but I'm able to do everything that I need to do on the free version, and so that's been really great. All right, so let's go back. So that was my little Canva tutorial. If you ever have questions about Canva, please let me know, because it's one of my favorite programs, and I haven't mastered everything, but I've done quite a bit on it. Okay, so once you have your book on Canva, you're going to want to decide, you're going to want to make it user friendly. And so depending upon what kind of book you have, I really would like you to consider, can you use bullet points to make it easier so it's not so much text? I know a lot of my students, if you just put like pages and pages and pages and pages of text in front of them, if it's not like a novel that's compelling, they just lose interest. And so if you can put bullet points where they know, okay, these are key things I need to know, or you can put spaces in your information. Definitely, if you can put your photographs and make graphics, Canva is great. You can use your photographs and you can do little drawings on there and put arrows and write words on your pictures and to explain things. I would encourage you to make your page numbers in the center of your pages, because no matter what side they end up on, it will always be in the center. You won't have to worry about left and right justifying your page number. So that's something to think about. Make sure that all your titles are consistent. So if the font is consistent and the type of font is consistent, and then any headings, like, are you consistent with your headings, the font, and whether it's bold or not. Also, your text font needs to be totally consistent, and consider a very legible, easily read font. I know a lot of fonts are really fun, like this one right here is called, you know, the layout, it's really fun. But in a book, if it's too hard to read, you're going to lose your readers. And then your margins need to be consistent. That's why I turn on those rulers. I was very, very precise about where my margins were, making sure they were all the same, because you can see, like when you see this layout, start to see that, oh wow, you do notice it when you have a 2-page layout. And then you want to make sure, especially if there's photographs, that your page is balanced. They don't have to be perfectly symmetrical and they don't have to be perfectly the same. They need to just be balanced. So if you have a really big photograph at the bottom of one page, you might want to have 2 smaller ones to balance it off on this other page. You might want to have something that's fairly symmetrical. You want to make sure that tops or bottoms of the photographs are lined up so that they're not just, if they're just like even a smidgen off, like even a 1/4 of an inch, it's really noticeable when you open up the book. Just some things to look for when you are looking at your layouts. Okay, choosing an editor. These are some qualities to look for. I would consider choosing 1 to 3 editors. What's interesting is you can choose somebody that is very knowledgeable about your subject, and that's great. But also, it's great to choose somebody who knows nothing about your subject, because they will be the people that will be like, I don't understand this. And so it gives you an opportunity to explain it further in your book. You want somebody that's detail oriented. You can want somebody that excels at grammar or writing. And you really want somebody that's available, because you don't want to pass it to your editor and then wait 2 or 3 or 4 weeks to get it back. And so just ask the people that you're trying to get as editors, if they're available to look at your work, and what kind of time frame you might have. And it also depends on the length of your book, obviously. But there also are people, like I know when my daughter was writing her high school papers, I did not feel equipped to be able to give her grade based on whether she was doing sophomore level work or junior level work or senior level work. And so I hired a lady to grade her papers. And so you can also hire people to edit your work. There are plenty of English teachers out there that would love to be an editor. I would, sometimes it's hard to hear feedback from an editor, but I would, recommend that you are open to what they have to say. You do not have to change anything you don't want to. It's your book. But you paid for this service, or you had a friend that was willing to do the service for you. So be willing to at least consider their comments about changes you ought to make. So just take that into consideration. Okay, for a title. So we didn't come up with a title in the very beginning. Some of you may have a title already in your head and you're ready to go. We did not. We literally wrote the book and then came up with a title. And so the one thing about choosing your cover image, make sure it's unique. You can use stock photos on the inside if that helps you explain things and you don't have photographs that cover the topic that you're talking about. That's no problem, but I recommend that you get a very unique photo for your cover, because you don't want to see your cover somewhere else on someone else's book. And then we just brainstormed. I brainstormed 10 titles. Then I asked my friends and family members to vote for their top 3. I talked it over with Linda. We asked for other versions, and then we ended up coming up with a title that was really a combination of 3 different versions. And so you're back to brainstorm again, and it's really helpful. One of the things that was interesting for me especially is I told a couple people about the title, and they were like, I don't know what composition it means. And so I was like, oh, because I'm so used to being around photographers and artists that I didn't realize that maybe other people didn't really understand the definition of that word. And so that's why we added more to the title to help explain what composition meant. And I also added like a paragraph at the beginning of the book to kind of explain it. So that was super helpful information for me. Okay, so you're down to your final draft. You've done all your editing. You've had somebody look over it or multiple people look over it. So now you're going to need 3 copies. You're going to need just a copy of it, and you can do this all in Canva. You can copy your book 3 times, and then you need just the cover, okay? Because you're going to have like Amazon is going to ask you for just the cover, or Gumroad is going to ask you for just the cover, and that's going to be like your thumbnail image that people see. You're also going to want to put it on your website, and so you're going to want the cover copy. So you want the cover only. Then you're going to want the content only without the cover, because when you upload it, you don't want the cover again. So you want just the content, and then you're going to want the cover and the content together. And you're going to want to download it as a high quality PDF. So it's important that, especially if you have photographs, that it's high quality, because they really do print nicely and they come across on ebooks really nicely. If you do the high quality, your photographs they will look awesome. So you're going to need those 3, and then save them somewhere where you can access them regularly, because depending upon where you put your book and what you do with it, you're going to come back to them. Okay, copyright. I encourage you to do some research. I am not a total expert in copywriting, but I have learned a lot. You need to decide if the copyright for your book is worth it. It's around $65. It may have gone up. You can find out more information at the U.S. Copyright Office. That is the official website of the U.S. Copyright Office, www.copyright.gov. When you type that in, there are a bunch of other companies that will come up that offer to help you with the copyright. I don't know anything about that. And so you just need to be careful that they're actually going to do a good job for you if you're going to hire them. It wasn't that hard to fill out the information on the form. I think y'all can do it. It's no big deal. I don't think you need to hire somebody to do that for you. One of the things that I will tell you about the Copyright Office is that if they have any questions, they're going to email you, and they give you this warning. They say, we need a response in 45 days. Otherwise, your process will be stopped and you'll be starting over, and you will have to pay a new fee. So when you get an email, which I did get an email from a gentleman from the Copyright Office, and he was very helpful and very friendly. One of the things that was a little bit complicated in our book was that Linda was a photographic contributor, and so was I. And so being able to put that in the form the way it was supposed to be added was a little bit confusing for me. So he was super helpful in the way the questions he asked, and he would actually, after I answered the questions very specifically, he would say, do you give me permission to put this in your form? And I'll be like, yes, I give you permission. And so he was super helpful. So we went back and forth probably 3 or 4 times. And I basically laid it out like, here's the deal. She has photographs, I have photographs. We wrote the text together. Like, how exactly do you want us to fill this out? And he was super helpful. But we did that, like, I conversed with him like every 2 or 3 days. So I made sure I did not get past that 45-day window. All right, where are you going to host your book? I really like Gumroad just because they were super easy. They're also fairly well known in the ebook venue. And so, but obviously Amazon is a household name. So they will both take a percentage of your sales, which for me was okay. At least I didn't have to pay an upfront cost. And so I think that was fine. If we sell a book, they take a percentage. That seems fair. They are hosting for us. For the ebook specifically, Gumroad was very simple. I uploaded our book probably in less than 30 minutes. And so it went straight from the high quality PDF. I answered a few questions. I set the price. I put the title page in. I uploaded it, and we were in business in about 30 minutes. So that was super easy. You can self-host on your own website if you have that kind of capability. I did not, we did not want to deal with making sure everything downloaded and there weren't any problems and collecting the money. And yeah, it just seemed easy to give Gumroad a percentage and them deal with any problems that a user might have. And so that was the option that we went. I would definitely, the minute it's up on Gumroad or on Amazon, I would put a link on your website so that people can find it and get to it. And so if you have a ton of text, putting your book on Amazon on the Kindle is as an ebook is actually fairly easy. And they have a program called Kindle Create, and they let you go in there and format it and put your font, and then it transfers beautifully from phone to a tablet to a computer screen. They like, if you're going to do your ebook, they like to have it pulled up in a Word doc. And so that's just something you should know, that it's really easy, much easier for them. And I would make sure that you're doing that your Word doc is fully edited, because editing on the Kindle Create is it's not as easy as doing it on the Word doc. And so I would make sure it's all ready to go. You can pull in images on the Kindle Create. It's just a little bit harder than just totally uploading a PDF and having it ready to go. So that's just one of the simplicity of Gumroad. Okay, but you're not done. Your book is ready. It's published. Oh, here's what I wanted to show you real quick, the hosting comparison. Okay, so with Amazon versus Gumroad, obviously Amazon is more of a household name. It's better well known. If you have an ebook with mostly text, Amazon, you create in a Word document and then you bring it up on Kindle Create. If you have an ebook with mostly pictures or graphics, I would encourage you to create it in Canva, download the PDF, and put it on Gumroad. You're going to have to do some promotion on your own anyway. So it kind of, I mean, it does matter a little bit where it is, but Gumroad is really good, especially if you're self-promoting. The book with mostly, if you have an actual book with mostly text, you have to put it on Amazon. There's no way to print a book on Gumroad except if your user, your audience, your reader prints it themselves. Okay, so there's no option to have an actual physical book from Gumroad. If it's a book with mostly pictures or graphics, again, I would create it in Canva. I would download the PDF, and it comes up beautifully in Amazon. Okay. It is easiest to create the ebook. I felt like it was easiest in Gumroad. So that's my, yeah, I felt like the ebook was easiest in Gumroad. All right, so you're not done yet. You've published your book, you're all excited, it's on your website. So now you really, really want to write a sales page. You want to go back to who's your customer, what problem is your book going to solve for them? Are there any added bonuses in your book? So one of the things that I wanted to make sure people knew is they could use my book as a homeschool class for an elective for their kids, especially their high school kids. They could use it as a class that they could get credit for as a homeschooler. And so I made sure that there were things in the back of the workbook, like rubrics, to be able to grade things so that a parent would be able to grade their assignments. And there were assignments for each little chapter. Another thing that was great about our book is my goal was to get over 100 examples, and we did that. And so that's something that I throw on my sales page, just say, hey, we have over 100 examples, there's 15 topics. So kind of give people a feel for what they're going to get with your book. Is there anything interesting that you can provide about your book? So we gave them just a few of the topics that we thought might not be so common. We didn't give them all the topics. We just give a few that might be the most interesting. And then what makes you credible? So think about, like, why should they buy this book from you? I've been teaching for a long time. I also, have an art background. And so, I made sure that they knew those things about me. If you have reviews, those can be incredibly valuable for your customer, and it can really make a difference in your sales. And so if you have people that have given you reviews or are willing to give you reviews, use them and show people, this is what so-and-so said about my book. And then this may seem obvious, but a lot of people don't do it. Have a call to action. So ask people to buy your book. Like on your sales page, say, here's where you can buy my book. If you have a button on the sales page on my website, every time the book is mentioned, whether it's book or ebook, I've linked it to the Amazon site or the Gumroad site, depending upon whether it says ebook or book. And then at the very bottom, I also say something to the effect of, here's where you can buy our book. And there's a button that they can click. So have a couple links that go straight to where they can buy your book, and then have a button that just says, if you're interested, buy it here. Now, once you have your ebook done, it's really an easy transition into a paperback or a hardback. And so which one are you going to choose? So it depends on what kind of book you have. I mean, if you have this gorgeous, really coffee table book, you probably want to consider hardback. You definitely have to consider your audience and what they can pay, because hardback is going to be more expensive than a paperback. What suits your content the best? Like for mine, it's a workbook, so a paperback makes total sense. But you can also do both. Some people might want a hard copy. Also, the type of paper that you use. So you have 4 options of paper when you put your book on Amazon. And so that can keep your cost down. So you have black and white versions, then you have like a color copy that is not as high quality as their high quality paper. And so for the photography book, we decided we wanted the highest quality paper because it would really make those photographs pop off the page and be really helpful for the student to be able to see, oh, wow, these are amazing photographs. Now I can actually see. If they were kind of muted in the colored paper that was just, it's more like it's just not as nice a paperback. I'm sure you've seen paperbacks that it has color, but it's not very many color variations. Anyway, we just felt like it wouldn't be as helpful to the students. So you can also do all 3. You can have an ebook, you can have your hardback, and you can have a paperback. So you can do all 3. So it's totally up to you what you decide. And so this is the first book that we did. Composition: 15 photography tips to creating captivating images. And then I also made a workbook because I think next year my students are going to put together their stories and their artwork and try to write their own book for Amazon. And so that's a quick, easy little workbook for my students next year. So, and there you go.
All wrapped up in a nice little paperback. It's pretty exciting. So, Karen went through a lot of information, and it probably felt fast. And here's the thing about Karen, more so than me, but we are accessible to you. So if you have any questions, reach out, because she's going to answer them, because that's just the way she's built. She's a natural born teacher, and she genuinely wants to set you up for success. And, there's a lot of stuff that I do know. Sometimes I don't think I know anything, but sometimes I do know stuff. But if we can't help you, we will find somebody to help you get started or get unstuck, because there is a lot of talent in our in our what I call the Rolodex. So for you young kids, that's an old lady term for your contact in your phones. But Karen, thank you so much. I'm looking to see if anybody has any questions in here. I don't see any,
No, that's fine.
at least at this point. I am curious if you guys are in this room. I'm just kind of curious who is thinking about writing a book, who's got something on the back burner. I'm wondering. I'd love to know what you guys are going to do with this information, because you spent an hour here with us, so there's got to be something, right? They've got to be somebody's got a secret that they want to put out there, and ooh, someone's calling out somebody's name. Did you see that? Yeah. Carolyn called out Sherry. So Sherry. But all right. Any I don't see any questions, so I guess we can go ahead and close this session out. Karen,
one thing, I definitely I would love to help. Like if you get in the process and you're like, don't get stuck or caught up, or I love to teach people the most efficient way possible. And so please reach out to me.
And she's not kidding. She's just not. All right, Karen, thank you so much for coming and doing this. Okay, so I know it's a lot of work to put a presentation together, and I know that you've got several notebooks of all the notes that you've taken over the last 100 sessions since we started this crazy project, and it is so cool to see the things that you've been doing the last 2 years. We are April 1st is the 2-year anniversary of when we started the Happiness Hour, and Karen was here from day one. And I think you've missed one session. I don't know what happened that day, but you missed one session. But it's just been a great, I don't want to call it partnership, but it is a partnership. Maybe you don't want to be my partner, but it's been great for me.
No, it's been fun. It's been really fun.
All right, y'all. You guys can connect with Karen through her website, homeplate101.com, and on Instagram at homeplate_101. That's homeplate_101. Next week, join us for Susan Hansen's presentation, Exploring the Underwater World. Until next time, go out and create something beautiful. And I hope that we see you again soon.